lonely man sees a desperate mother crying on the sidewalk with two small children beside her. They have just been evicted. No money, no home, no hope. He doesn't even know this woman, but he does something no one expected. He opens the doors of his own house even though he has almost nothing. But what begins as a gesture of compassion transforms into something much bigger. Secrets from a violent past come to light. Tears fall inside a church. And when you think you know how this story will end, get ready, because life has plans that none of them could imagine. This is a story about faith, new beginnings, and how God transforms pain into purpose. So subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and comment on where you're watching from, and let's get to the story. It was a Thursday afternoon, one of those when the sun is beginning to set but the heat still hangs in the air. James was returning from work, walking along Maple Street, a quiet street in a small town in rural Georgia. He had sawdust stains on his blue plaid shirt, his hands calloused from working with wood all day. James was a carpenter, one of the best in the region, known for making furniture that lasted generations. He was 37 years old, with always slightly messy brown hair, a stubble beard, and that simple air of someone who doesn't need much to be happy. That's when he saw it. Across the street, sitting on the sidewalk with her back against an old suitcase, was a young woman crying. It wasn't a discreet cry, you know. It was the kind of cry that comes from deep inside, the kind you can't hold back even if you try. Beside her were two small children. A boy of about 7, thin, wearing a faded Spider-Man t-shirt, held his little sister's hand tightly. The girl must have been about 4, her curly hair tied back with a pink elastic band, her eyes wide with fear. They both looked at their mother, not knowing what to do. James stopped. He could have kept walking. He could have pretended not to see, like most people do, but that wasn't his style. He crossed the street and approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Hey, is everything all right?" he asked, his voice low and gentle. The woman lifted her face. Her eyes were red and swollen. She must have been about 28 years old, with a pretty face but marked by tiredness, dark brown hair tied in a loose ponytail. She wore jeans ripped at the knee and a simple white blouse. For a second, she seemed ashamed, as if she didn't want anyone to see her in that state. "I'm sorry, She tried to wipe away her tears with the back of her hand. "I didn't want to be here on the street like this." "No problem." James crouched down in front of her, getting to her eye level. "My name is James. What happened?" She took a deep breath, trying to find the words. The boy squeezed his sister's hand tighter. "Sarah," she said, her voice breaking. "My name is Sarah. They just evicted us. I couldn't pay the rent this month. I worked 2 jobs. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. The landlord threw our things out on the street and locked the door." James looked around and saw that there were indeed some bags and boxes scattered across the sidewalk. Everything this family owned in the world was there, exposed for anyone to see. "Do you have somewhere to go?" Sarah shook her head, biting her lip to stop herself from crying more. "No. My parents live in another city and we don't talk. I don't have any friends here. I don't have anyone." James was silent for a moment. He knew what it was like to be in need. He had grown up poor. He knew the bitter taste of not having anything to eat, of sleeping in the cold. But God had been good to him. He had a roof over his head. He had work. He had health. And at that moment, looking at that desperate mother and those 2 frightened children, he knew what he had to do. "Look, Sarah," he began, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know you and you don't know me, but if you want, you can stay at my place. It's not big or luxurious, but it's enough for you to stay while you find a better place." Sarah's eyes widened. "What? No, I can't accept this. We don't know each other. You don't owe me anything." "I know I don't owe you anything." James gave a half smile. "But I think that's what we have to do, you know? Help when we can. We can't just leave you guys here on the street." She looked at him, studying his face. Part of her was afraid. After all, he was a stranger. He could be anyone. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something different. Genuine kindness. That light that only pure-hearted people possess. And the truth is, she had no choice. Night was falling soon, and staying out on the street with 2 small children was not an option. "Okay," she whispered, her voice almost fading away. "We accept." "Thank you." James helped gather their things. It wasn't much, enough to carry. The boy picked up one of the bags, trying to help. They walked 3 blocks to James's house, a small wooden house painted white, with a small garden in front and a low fence. Nothing luxurious, but it had a welcoming air, one of those houses that you look at and immediately feel at peace. "Welcome." James opened the door. Inside, the house was simple but tidy. A small room with a worn but clean sofa, an old TV, and a few photos on the walls. It smelled of wood and coffee. Sarah felt something strange in her chest. Peace. It had been so long since she had felt peace. "The bedroom is over there." James pointed to the hallway. "There's a double bed, and I can set up a mattress on the floor for the little ones. The bathroom is right next door. Make yourselves at home, okay?" "Thank you," Sarah said again, because she didn't know what else to say. James glanced at the clock on the wall. "Look, I need to leave now, but I'll be right back." "Where are you going?" she asked, curiously. "I'm going to church. There's a service every Thursday," he replied casually. Then he looked at her and the boys. "Don't you want to come with me?" Sarah became thoughtful. Church. She had never been to a church in her life. She grew up in a house where God was never mentioned, except as a curse word. Religion always seemed like something for weak people. At least that's what her ex said. "Not today," she replied slowly. "But maybe another day." James smiled, that calm smile of someone who isn't forcing anything. "It's okay, take your time. There's no rush." And he left, leaving them alone in the house. Sarah stood in the middle of the room for a minute, almost expecting to wake up and discover it was a dream. But it was real. A stranger had opened his home to her and her children, without asking for anything in return. "Mom," the boy tugged at her shirt. "That man is nice." "Yes, son." She ran her hand through his hair. "I think so." She decided to do something useful. She went to the kitchen and found some ingredients in the refrigerator. She made a simple dinner, pasta with tomato sauce and shredded chicken. The children ate with gusto. Poor things. They had barely had lunch that day. After dinner, she bathed them and put them to bed in the room James had offered. In a few minutes, they were asleep, cuddled together as they always did when they were scared. Sarah went back to the kitchen and waited. She wasn't quite sure why, but she thought it would be polite to have dinner with him. It was the least she could do after everything. Around 9 o'clock at night, she heard the door opening. "I'm here," James said, entering. He paused when he saw the table set. "Did you make dinner?" "I made it. I hope you don't mind." "I used some ingredients I had in your refrigerator." "No problem. Make yourself at home." He sat down at the table. "It's been a long time since anyone cooked here. I usually just reheat something." They ate in silence for a few minutes. It was an awkward silence, but not an uncomfortable one. Then Sarah began to speak, slowly at first, but the words flowed like water from a dam overflowing. "You know, James, I need to tell you my story. You took me in without knowing me. I think you deserve to know who you're sharing your home with." James stopped eating and looked at her intently. "Only if you want to tell me. You don't have to feel obligated." "I want to," she said. And it was true. It had been a long time since she'd had anyone to really talk to. "I grew up in a very complicated home, you know. My father drank. My mother was always yelling. The house was always a battlefield. There was never peace, never love, just fighting and more fighting. I swore that when I grew up, I would leave there and never come back." She stirred her food, her eyes drifting off as if reliving bad memories. "When I turned 18, I met Derek. He was 22, handsome, spoke beautifully, and promised a better world. I was young, stupid, desperate to leave home. So I went to live with him, thinking I had found my salvation. James continued listening without interrupting. At first it was good, or at least I thought it was, but he was never an easy guy. He had a difficult temperament. He was always involved with the wrong people, but I overlooked it because I had nowhere else to go, you know? It was better than going back to my parents' house. Then I got pregnant with Tyler, my oldest son. I was 19. 2 years later came Emma, my daughter, and that's when everything really got worse. Her voice began to tremble. After Emma was born, Derek changed completely. Or maybe he'd always been like that and I just didn't want to see it. He started hitting me when we fought. At first it was a shove, then a slap, then... Well, you get the idea. I had to accept it because I literally had nowhere to go. My parents had moved to another city, to Arizona, and the environment there was the same or worse than what I was living in. I had no friends, no family nearby, no money. It was just me, the boys, and him. James felt it tighten in his chest. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I endured it for years, she continued, wiping away a tear that had rolled down her cheek. I stayed with him because of the children, because I thought it was better to have a father, even a bad one, than to have no father at all. What a mistake, right? But a year ago, they killed him. He was involved in drug trafficking, debts, that kind of thing. He was shot in a fight and died right there in the street. Part of me was relieved and I hate myself for it. Don't hate yourself, James said softly. You've been through hell. It's human to feel relief when the nightmare is over. Sarah nodded, trying to compose herself. After he died, I was left alone with the boys. And that's when I decided, my children will not have the life I had. They will have better. They will have peace and they will have security. They will have love. I started working like crazy. I accepted any job that came along. I worked as a cleaner, a waitress, a supermarket cashier, everything at the same time. I slept 4 hours a night. Everything I earned went to food and rent. But even so, even killing myself working, it wasn't enough. I was 2 months behind on rent and the landlord had no pity. He evicted us today. She looked at James with eyes full of pain and shame. I failed them. I promised them a better life and I couldn't give it to them. James reached out and touched her hand on the table. A simple gesture but full of meaning. You didn't fail, Sarah. You fought. You protected your children the way you could. That's not failure, that's love. And things will get better, I promise. How can you be so sure? Because God doesn't abandon those who fight the right way, he said with conviction, and because I'm going to help you. Sarah didn't know what to say. This man, this stranger she had met just a few hours ago, was offering her more hope than she had felt in years. Tomorrow is Friday, James continued. There's church on Sunday morning. Come with me. Bring the boys. I think it will do you good. She hesitated, but then nodded. Okay, we'll go. That night, Sarah slept better than she had in months. For the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The first few days were strange. Sarah wasn't used to sharing space with someone who was truly kind. James would leave early for work at his carpentry shop and return in the late afternoon. She tried to help as much as she could, cleaning the house, cooking, and taking care of the boys. Gradually, they got used to each other's presence. Tyler and Emma started smiling again, something Sarah hadn't seen in a long time. When Sunday arrived, Sarah woke up nervous. She chose the least worn-out clothes she had, carefully combed Emma's hair, and put gel in Tyler's hair. James was wearing a light blue dress shirt and jeans. Nothing too formal. My God doesn't care about clothes, he joked when he saw Sarah worried. The church was small, a white brick building with a wooden cross out front. It had a dirt parking lot and a sign that read, Hope Baptist Church. Inside, it was simple but welcoming. Wooden benches, a small stage with drums and guitars, smiling people greeting each other. James, A gray-haired lady with round glasses came to greet him. "It's so good to see you. And who are these people?" "Mrs. Martha, these are my friends, Sarah, Tyler, and Emma. They're staying at my house for a while." "How wonderful." Mrs. Martha squeezed Sarah's hand affectionately. "Welcome, dears. This is your home too." They sat on one of the middle benches. The service began with music. At first, Sarah just observed. People sang with their hands raised. Some cried, others smiled. There was an energy there, something she had never felt before. When the pastor came up to preach, she tried to pay attention. He was a black man in his 50s, with a strong but gentle voice, speaking about how God transforms pain into purpose. "There are people here today who have been through a lot," the pastor said. "There are people who have been hurt, abandoned, who have lost everything. But I want you to know, God doesn't waste your pain. He takes the broken pieces of your life and makes something beautiful with them. You just need to trust. You just need to let Him act." It was then that Sarah began to cry. It wasn't a cry of sadness. It was something else, something she couldn't explain. It was as if something heavy she had carried for years was finally being lifted from her shoulders. James noticed and discreetly offered her a tissue. She took it and tried to compose herself, but the tears continued to fall. At the end of the service, the pastor made an appeal. "If you want to give your life to Jesus today, if you want to start over, come up here." Sarah looked at James. He smiled and nodded, as if to say, "Go, if you want to." She stood up, her legs trembling, and walked to the front. She wasn't alone. Others came too. The pastor prayed for each one, placing his hand on their heads, asking God to transform their lives. When Sarah returned to the bank, she was a different person. She couldn't explain it, but something had changed inside her. For the first time in a very, very long time, she felt real hope. After that Sunday, Sarah began going to church every week. She took the boys, who quickly made friends in Sunday school. She started reading the Bible James had lent her, writing down verses that spoke to her heart. Gradually, she understood that her story hadn't ended that day on the sidewalk. In fact, it was only just beginning. About 2 weeks later, James came home with a proposal. "Sarah, have you ever thought about working with me?" She was washing dishes and turned around, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I'm in the carpentry shop. I need someone to help me. You can start by doing simple things, sanding wood, applying varnish, organizing the tools. Over time, I'll teach you the rest. I pay properly and you'll have fixed hours. You can take the kids to school and pick them up without any problem." Sarah felt her eyes welling up with tears again. It seemed like lately she only cried, but now they were good tears. "James, I don't know what to say. Why are you doing all this for me?" He shrugged, in his usual simple way. "Because I can, and because I think that's what God wants me to do. So, do you accept or not?" "I accept," she said without thinking twice. The following Monday, Sarah started working in James's carpentry shop. It was a large shed in the back of his house, full of machines, tools, and the smell of fresh wood. At first, she was clumsy, didn't know how to hold the tools properly, and was afraid of the machines. But James was patient, teaching slowly and correcting without criticizing. Little by little, she got the hang of it. "You have a good hand for this," James said one afternoon, watching her sand a cabinet door. "You're getting professional." "Do you really think so?" Sarah smiled proudly. "I think so. Really." Working together created a different kind of intimacy. They talked while they worked, laughed at silly jokes, and sometimes enjoyed comfortable silences. Sarah discovered that James had lost his mother as a child, that his father was a tough but honest man who had taught him the carpentry trade. She learned that he was lonely because he had never found someone who made his heart beat faster. "I always thought God would send the right person at the right time," he would say. Sarah began to notice things about him. How kind he was to the boys, always asking how their day at school had been, helping Tyler with his math homework, how he let Emma brush his hair while they watched cartoons, How he looked at Sarah when he thought she wasn't looking, that look full of something she couldn't name. And she also began to feel things she hadn't expected. Her heart racing when he entered the room, the desire to be near him, the genuine happiness she felt when he smiled. She was afraid of these feelings. After everything she had been through with Derek, she had sworn never to get involved with anyone again. But James was different, completely different. One night, after the boys had gone to sleep, they were sitting on the porch drinking iced tea. The night was warm, filled with crickets chirping and stars twinkling. "Sarah," James began, sounding nervous. "There's something I want to talk to you about." Her heart raced. "What is it?" "These months with you and the boys here have been different. Good. Very good. I've gotten used to you guys being here. In fact, I can't imagine this house without you anymore." He paused, searching for the right words. "I know you've been through a lot. I know you're scared. But I need you to know that I've fallen in love with you. Completely." Sarah felt the tears welling up again. "James, you don't need to answer now," he continued quickly. "I just wanted you to know, and I wanted to say that I'll wait as long as you need. If you want us to just be friends, that's fine. If you want to leave, I'll understand. But if you feel even a little bit of what I feel, I'd like to have the chance to show you that a relationship can be different. It can be about respect, partnership, true love." Sarah looked at him, at the man who had appeared in her life out of nowhere and turned everything upside down. The man who had seen value in her when she herself didn't. Who had opened his home, his work, his heart to her. "I've fallen in love with you too," she whispered. "I'm scared, James. Very scared. But for the first time, I want to try. I want to believe it can be different." He took her hand and squeezed it tenderly. "It's going to be different. I promise." And so it was. They started dating slowly, respecting each other's pace. James never pressured her, never demanded anything. He took her to dinner at the only diner in town, took the boys fishing at the lake. They had picnics after church. Sarah gradually opened up, letting the walls fall, allowing herself to be truly loved. 6 months later, James proposed to her. It was simple, on the porch of their house with the boys as witnesses. "I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy," he said, on one knee, holding a modest but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she replied without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. They married in a small ceremony at Hope Baptist Church, with Mrs. Martha crying in the front row and the pastor smiling from the altar. Tyler was the page boy, and Emma scattered white rose petals down the aisle. Sarah wore a simple white dress that she had sewn herself. When James saw her walk in, he cried. He cried because God had been faithful. He had sent not just a wife, but a whole family. Life didn't get easy overnight. They still had bills to pay and hard work ahead. But now they were a team. They worked together in the carpentry shop, which began to grow. The quality of their work was so good that orders started coming from neighboring towns. They hired 2 employees, then 4. In 3 years, they had a real business. They had another child, a boy they named Lucas, with green eyes like his father and a mischievous smile like his mother. Tyler and Emma called James Dad without anyone having to ask, because he was their father, in every sense that mattered. They began serving in the church, helping those in need, just as James had helped Sarah one day. They set up a project that offered free carpentry courses to young people in the community. They gave basic food baskets to needy families. They opened their home to those who had nowhere to stay, just as Sarah and the boys had been welcomed. "You know what's even crazier?" Sarah said one night, years after that day on the sidewalk. They were in bed, Lucas asleep in his crib next to them, Tyler and Emma in their rooms. "If someone had told me that day that I was going to end up here with you, with this life, I wouldn't have believed it." James pulled her close. "God had a plan all along." "He really did," she agreed, resting her head on his chest. He took all my mess and turned it into something beautiful. And it was true. God had taken a broken woman sitting on a hopeless sidewalk and given her not just a house but a home. Not just a man, but a partner. Not just survival, but purpose. He had transformed her pain into a testimony, her tears into joy, her despair into unwavering faith. Because that's what God does. He doesn't waste anything. Not the pain, not the tears, not the hard years. He takes everything and weaves something beautiful, something only He could create. And sometimes, He uses simple people like James, people with open hearts and a willingness to obey, to make miracles happen. Sarah never felt alone again. She never felt worthless again, because she had discovered that her worth didn't come from what she had or didn't have, but from who she was in God's eyes. And in His eyes, she had always been precious. She had always been loved. She just needed someone to show her that. The carpentry business continued to grow. The boys grew up too, becoming young men of character, knowing God from an early age, seeing in their daily lives what true love and true family were. Tyler became a pastor, following the calling he felt since adolescence. Emma became a social worker, helping women in situations of domestic violence, using her own story to give hope to others. Lucas followed in his parents' footsteps and took over the carpentry business, expanding it even further. And James and Sarah, they grew old together, hand in hand, serving God and serving people, proving that stories of redemption are not fantasy. They are real. They happen every day. You just need courage to take the first step, whether it's extending a hand to help or accepting an outstretched hand. You know, this story makes me think about how many times we pass by people who need help and pretend not to see them. James could have turned his face away, but he chose to see. He chose to act. He chose to trust in God. And look what happened. God doesn't waste anything. Not your pain, not your tears, not your most difficult moments. He takes everything and transforms it into something beautiful, into a testimony, into a purpose. If this story touched you in any way, if it reminded you that there is still goodness in this world, leave a like, comment on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel to continue hearing stories like this. May God bless you and your family.